Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton, and today I've got a new twist on a show for you. I actually have a friend of mine from high school, and we haven't really connected since high school's over. That's over 30 years ago. I think we both graduated when we were like 8 or 9, so we're not as old as you think we are. But we're going to have some really just cool conversations. Christopher Karr is on the show with us today. And it's two Chris's just kind of chopping it up a little bit about family, about personal growth, success and failures, and just getting caught up. And you guys get to get a front row seat to that. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's great to be here, man. A little bit of an imposter syndrome being here, listening to your podcast previously, and you have these mentors and these coaches and these people that come on and have these powerful influences, and it's about positive and it's about, reinvigorating lifestyles and I'm just a buddy from back in the day, slinging it out here
Yeah.
on the West Coast, trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So.
Well, I tell you, but you're one of those people too in my life. Like, so I watch you, right? I see what you're doing, see what you're accomplishing. You're chasing your dreams in California, which is not easy to do in the film industry, right?
Yeah.
It's just not an easy thing.
Yeah.
So I want to get into that at some point, but
Sure.
I want to share one of my first memories of meeting Chris, and it was at Bishop Moore High School in Orlando, and it was a football practice, and Chris is a year younger than me. So I came to school as a sophomore, and Chris was a freshman, and he was our quarterback on our football team. And a lot of times quarterbacks will be arrogant and they'll be too good to talk to you or whatever. But for some reason, Chris and I just gelled right out of the gate, and we always had great conversations and stuff through the trials and tribulations of playing football at a really bad football school. So it was
At
it was
that
more
time,
about,
at that time, we're
yeah. Oh, now they're dominant, but I don't recognize
it's
it when
so
I go there now.
Oh,
So let's talk about football first, and just how did the struggles with football prepare you for the film industry? I mean, there has to be a parallel there, right?
I think there is, and I think it's a performance thing. It's something that in where I am in my life, and I know you take these reevaluations kind of, maybe it's every decade, you kind of look back on things, why we did what we did, the choices we made, and stuff like that. I only ever really had two dreams in life, was to play football in the snow and to be in film, whatever that meant at the time. I was living on Heights Court in Pine Hills, and we used to make these audio recordings of alien invasion and these elaborate stories with the kids in the neighborhood. And I think that manifested from there, wanting to perform and tell stories and stuff like that. And I think that having an ability to and a love for excuse me, and a love for football as well, the ability to get out there and play. The YMCA was there, it was close by, I could get out there and play. Bishop Moore offered football, I could get out there and play. So the availability to play and the love for football. I grew up in Florida. The Dolphins were big, and Marino, and it's kind of the thing. So I was like, I actually started at 8 playing football, and my dad was a high school player, and so I kind of looked up to him and admired, the newspaper clippings and the stories that he would always tell. So I think that led to me wanting to pursue football that way. And I loved football. And I enjoyed the collision. I enjoyed the hitting and the camaraderie, the team building. But the performance aspect of it is there too. You get the praise, and you get the jeers when it's bad, and you get instant, it's instant. Whatever it is, it's happening instantly, and you hope that it's the good. And when it's the good, it makes you strong enough to withstand the bad. And we didn't have a tremendous amount of good as far as racking up points and really destroying on the field. But I think that kind of led to, I didn't quit. None of us quit. We stuck to it, even though we were not winning every game. We enjoyed going out and being together and building that team and working from all week long, preparation to execution on Friday night, or if there was mosquito problems, Saturday morning. And that being able to do that with your team all the way through, um, that I think was a foundational thing for me in the film industry, as far as you have pre-production, you work with this team, everybody has their specialty, everybody provides, nobody steps on toes, you don't move that sandbag, there's a union that moves that sandbag, you don't throw that block, there's somebody there that's assigned to throw that block, so you learn to work within this unit all along the way, and then you get through production, and then you get to post production, and then your film is done or your game is complete, and then you can look back and see where you were efficient or deficient, and then you move along. But I think the performance aspect, I enjoyed that playing football. I think that led to, or that fed that same sort of bug that I got when we would make those stories together that led to, 8 millimeter films that, led to having a radio show in college. Football afforded me the opportunity to go away to college. I went to Valdosta State out of Bishop Moore. And then from Valdosta State, I transferred to Iowa Wesleyan. Good God, I could go on about the characters, man, and the times and we could, and I want to hear about you, man. This, as well. I mean, of course we're catching up, but you asked me a question, and I'm a talker, dude.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I tell you, Chris, what I look back at those times, and I share the memories with my kids from going to Bishop Moore. It was, in my opinion, it was an incredibly special school at the time. Yeah. I don't know if it's that way anymore. I have no idea. I'm not really connected with it, but I'm still friends with so many people from that era, like that I can pick up a phone and call if I need to. When we lose a family, when we lose somebody from the Bishop Moore family, we all mourn that loss, right? Like I feel it's just it was a different time back then. So I don't know if it's that way anymore, but I look back at high school football as a couple lessons for me. One was I felt like I had to work harder than everybody else because of my limb difference, right? Sure. I had to go do that. But then I also look back and I go, man, Chris, you settled for making the team when you probably could have done a lot better if you'd have worked harder. And I think those things through now. So now I'm at a point in my life where if I get connected with something, I don't just settle to be connected. I go to win the whole thing, yes, right? Yeah. And I think that's a lesson that I can go back and draw from. And before we get off the football thing, I think it's important. I mean, I remember you were injured, severely injured at one point in your high school career.
Yeah.
Do you look back at that and go, man, if I overcame that, like there's not much that can hold me back?
Brother, yeah, I was afraid this was going to be like an unpacking kind of thing. Yeah, I did. I got injured really badly. My mom had died just a year prior, so my dad was a wreck, I can imagine. Yeah, I got a brain and spinal concussion, and I'd hit somebody head to head, and yeah, it put me out. I was done. I had to be resuscitated, from what I understand. I woke up in the helicopter. Last thing I remember was a man shouting, he's dead, from the other side, from, like, it was I think it was Osceola we were playing.
Yeah, it was either Osceola or Gateway. It was somewhere in Osceola County for sure, right?
Yeah. Tito Paul was the kid. Tito Paul. He ended up going to Ohio State. Ended up playing for the Denver Broncos, and I think he's doing insurance now for State Farm. I don't know, little things you try and keep track of in your life, but yeah. Oh, it meant something. It absolutely meant something. It was a turning point in my life that really started a confidence problem, because I was really injured, but when I recovered, I was paralyzed for about 2 weeks from the neck down, and then things started to come back online slowly. It took about 7 to 10 years for me to get full feeling back, sensitivity and everything. It was numb for a long time, but yeah, it screwed me up psychologically. I never quite felt like, well, maybe if I'd have gotten up and if I'd have snapped out of it or something, I could have, we could have won that game, and I would have never, had to compromise. There's so many things that the what ifisms that if I'd only, then maybe I would have. I don't know. If anything was different, bro. If anything was different, my kids wouldn't be here. So I can't. My wife wouldn't. I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have the opportunity for success that I have now. You know, um, that's it. That I mean, it shook me. It shook my confidence. It shook me. I was timid from then, so I think I leaned in harder because I was so timid, which is stupid, but it did do something to me that took me until about 2014 to shake.
I mean, being close to you, I saw a change in you after that. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I saw the change in you. Personality was a little different. I think a little more open and focused
Mm-hmm.
on life in general, and not just having blinders on about being a quarterback. Now it's
Yeah,
like, okay, there's all these other things. And, and I applaud you for getting back on the field and doing that. And that's a big deal. And no, I'm not trying to get you to unpack your childhood
well,
to do that.
it's
Like,
tough.
but that's the question because I was just thinking this morning when I was leaving the gym, I'm like, if I was sitting across the table just having a cup of coffee with Chris, what would I talk about first? And that's the first thing I wanted to ask. I never, when we were kids, we'd never ask that question.
Right,
You ask a question like that, people think there's something wrong with you,
right,
right?
right.
So now we're middle aged
Wiser.
and we can, yeah, so.
Yeah, no, no. That's interesting. That has had such an impact on my life and everything since then. It did. It marked a turning point in my life where it's like everything after that gets compared to that. Was it as bad as
Yeah.
that? Did it paralyze me? No. So get up and go. Was it, is it the fear of something? It can't be. I'm attacking fear every single day in jujitsu. I'm fighting against this 1% of people on the planet that are just absolute monsters. And yeah, throw myself in them every day, conquering fear, conquering fear. And I think it has to be that thing. That was just my abyss staring moment into fear. I just had it at that age, at that time. Some people, take fear, and I do even auditions, even this interview, fear. That is he gonna go?
Well,
How is he
I
gonna
know
ask
when
me
you,
these questions? And what am
well,
I
Chris,
intervention?
when you DM'd me back, like you were a little nervous in the DM, I'm like,
Totally.
oh, okay. Well, it's not like that. I'm not out here to grill anybody. I just wanted to have questions I want to ask, and I'd
Yeah.
ask them no matter
Oh,
what.
anything, man. But honestly, it was like
But I think,
what do I have to offer? He's got these guys on that, rallies with thousands of people that come and listen to them speak, and they're empowering people and people that have had, and my stories. A lot of them we can't probably tell for your audience, but I don't know. It's one of those like imposter syndrome things, like I was saying. It's just me, bro. It's just me. What do I have to offer? What do I have to
well,
say?
I, I learned a valuable lesson about imposter syndrome from my friend Renee Rodriguez, who's been on my show, and I was actually with him in Miami over the weekend for a couple days, and he said, Chris, imposter syndrome is proof you're leveling up. When you put yourself in uncomfortable positions, that's where you are, and you should always feel like you're an imposter syndrome. I'm like, dude, that I'm on my way then, because I feel like that every day when I get out of bed, right? Like, I walk in the gym, the same gym with my trainer that I work out 3 days a week, and every time I walk in there, I feel like I'm not supposed to be there. There's guys in there training for the draft and everything else, and I'm just like, here comes Chris walking in the gym. So I love that part of it, but I love the humility though, Chris. I love the humility, right? Because I think that that's just comes with age, the humility part of that. And I think that you could have made a decision when you were hurt there to let that take you down a path, and nobody would have been mad at you, right? Just like my life dealing with my mom as a drug addict and all those, like I could have gone down a path. I literally had an aunt tell me one time, Christopher, it's okay if you become a screw up. We understand. Like, what kind of approval is that?
Wow.
what,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's, systemic. So you've stared into your abyss, and you are able to change the system. You are able to going forward, and now, you know, with your new child, you're definitely able to change that systemic
yes,
culture.
definitely,
I mean, and
definitely.
and
Yep.
and it's unfortunately it's not unique. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's in many different ways. It's something that we see from previous generations where it was you can't talk about certain feelings, you can't share certain things, you can't talk about what's happening behind the closed doors that maybe the parent is doing that is upsetting the child. And when those confrontations now, I think are happening, at least are a little bit more out in the open. There's people talking about things a lot more openly. They're acknowledging maybe if they have oh, it's a mental thing I'm having. Okay, well then there's a possible diagnosis for that, or I'm having a problem with this person is having trouble with X, Y, and Z in their life, and they can't shake it. And there's a group, there's definitely a way for that system to change now that wasn't in place when we were kids. And unfortunately, well, dude, look what it's done to you. It's made you hard as nails, man. And you think about those kids when you go in there and they're training for the draft and doing those things. Yeah, they're young and they're virile and they're going for it, and they've got everything looking at but then they look over at you, brother. You're in there too. You're not training for no draft. What are you in there doing? You're not complaining. You're not taking. You're not with your latte. You're not chasing tail in there. You're in there getting after it with some freaking harness on this shit that makes you able to press the same shit they're doing. You know, those guys, if they don't do an extra rep when they're done, they go fuck themselves. You know, if they don't do an extra rep
Yeah.
or two when they're done, 10, no, 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 12. You did 12, I'll do 13. And I think that too. I think that's what brought me back to football as well was doing that with the team, having that pushing from the team, because we all did. We used to work out together, and there were those things. And I mean, I'm sure that happens amongst all teams everywhere. But that's what brought me back was that it was I didn't want to lose out on that. I didn't want to lose that camaraderie, the friendships, and God, remember the pads you used to wear?
The
The
Yeah, yeah, I got a picture. I mean, they're like massive, right? Like, I mean, I played linebacker, right?
yeah,
So my pads were like, I
yeah.
could have hit a truck with them and they wouldn't have hurt my shoulder.
Man, yeah, dude, I remember that. Those big bike pads, big bike helmets.
Yeah, I mean, you see them now, like we would have thigh pads and knee pads and hip pads and I would take two for them because remember my senior year, I broke my left arm, like second week of the season, and I played the rest of the year with a broken arm,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I put a forearm pad here and a
The
forearm
forearm
pad here,
pads,
and then I would
yes,
tape it
those
up,
K
right,
pads, yeah.
and it looked like a steel flipper.
The flipper. Hey man,
But hey, man,
hey man,
you know,
that flipper was a mother, dude. Hey,
oh yeah, I give some people the business with it for sure,
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
sure, without a doubt. So
And then
I want to
wrestling,
talk just like, what'd you say?
and then wrestling too.
Wrestling too, yeah,
You know,
yeah. I just always had a no quit kind of. That's just my thing, and that's I think why like recently I did 75 hard last year, and then are you familiar with what that program is?
yes, yes. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not terribly familiar, but I've been following you. Yeah, so yeah,
yeah. So two workouts a day, 45 minutes, one inside, one outside, no alcohol, no cheat meals, read 10 pages a day, drink a gallon of water. So I did that, and I did the thing called the Live Hard program, where we extended out another 30 days. But then for my 50th birthday, I did the David Goggins challenge,
okay,
which is run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And then I did 2 extra miles because I turned 50 that week.
okay.
And that was
Dude,
That was brutal, man. But
4
you
miles
find
every
out who
four
you are.
hours for 48 hours.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
So total sleep deprivation, like you get a
yeah,
little bit of sleep. Yeah.
yeah. You find out
Yep.
some things about yourself for sure.
You do. You do. But the cool thing was is I had somebody with me every single time I went out the door. Somebody came over like 4 in the morning, midnight, eight
Wow.
o'clock. My wife did a couple rounds with me. Jason Purcell did a round with me.
Yeah,
My business
Purcell.
partner BJ did a round with me.
Right on.
Um, just my sister-in-law, a couple of the guys that work for me. I mean, my personal trainer was here. So it's cool that the people that'll jump in and help you accomplish those things. Um,
Savage. Oh,
I don't think I'll do that
Purcell.
again.
He looks like he's still in great shape too.
He is. He is. We have the same trainer. I just saw him this morning when I left. I get there at 6:30 on Wednesdays. He gets there at 7:30. So
uh, why so
yeah,
late?
yeah. Because I have the 6:30 slot.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool that you guys are still in touch, still friends. That's great.
yeah, I mean, we
That's
work
great.
together. So I mean, I see him almost
Oh,
every
okay,
day. So
okay, okay. So you're back
yeah,
in Florida then.
yeah,
You
yeah.
were
I've been back in Florida for about 7 years.
okay.
So how long have you been in California?
I think I moved out here. Um, I say I think it was 96 or 97. It's tough, man. Um, to recall that. I can't remember which. I don't remember because I worked at the Golf Channel when I came home from Iowa Wesleyan. I graduated, came home, worked at the Golf Channel, worked for Arnold Palmer for like 6, 7 months or something, and then I had to make the split. I said I gotta go. If I don't go now, I'm never gonna go. So I think that was 96. I had $236 and a gas card that was good till about Houston, and then there's no Amcos past west of Houston, so I had to gas and go a bit because I stayed a week in Texas visiting old college buddies um, on my way out. So I stayed a week in Texas and spent about 200 of my $236, and then when I finally got to on the trip out, yeah, that's a whole other story. It was amazing. Finally got to Redondo Beach, California, had $11 left and no place to live. So I lived in my truck for the first week ish. Yeah, but that was in '96, and then got a job at a hotel. Got an advance on half a paycheck that I put towards half a deposit on a crack house, on a room in a crack house in Torrance, California. I say crack house because one of the guys that
Yeah.
lived in this house was a huffer, and he put paint thinner in the structure of the house so it would smell like paint thinner constantly.
Oh my God.
So yeah, needless to say, and he was a smoker too, so I'm pretty sure that house was going to go up at any moment. Um, yeah, it was not a it was not a good situation, but to make those leaps, for that net to appear, you have to. Sometimes you got to go, man, and you make your way. You do. You just. I mean, I don't know how. You can't do it again. I could never do it again. I couldn't tell somebody else how to do it. I can only say that I did it, and that's it. I'm still alive. Yeah, so about 96, 97 ish, right at the end of 96, I think it was. Yeah. And then,
So
yeah,
do you, do you share that story often on
no,
what that journey was like when you first got there?
not often. Here I am. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I mean, because it's like, it's almost too cliche. Dude, I was at a diner in New Orleans on the way out, and there was this guy at the end of the table, at the end of the diner, and it was like early morning, and I just finished my eggs, and where are you going, boy? And the whole thing, man, I'm going out to
uh-huh.
LA and blah blah blah. Well, he said, and this is the thing, it's like it's so cliche, but it happened. He said, well, if you aim for the stars and you fall short and you land on the moon, you're still on higher ground. I was like, well, all right, man, that's cool. That's cool. I'll take that. I'll take that. That's better than, well, if you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough. And that was my
Uh-huh.
dad's phrase to me. When I was 3 years old, I put a hammer into my skull because I was banging it on the ground, on an anchor, actually. My parents had this anchor. They brought up from the Bahamas, and it was in our front lawn. And so I was banging on it with a hammer when I was 3 years old, and then on the comeback, I got it
Bam.
stuck in my head. Done a lot of bad things to my head, Chris Welton.
It I
Concussions.
the story about getting to California and where you're in, that sounds like a movie, Chris. I think you might know somebody that could make that into a movie.
uh, you know, it was. I would never do it again. I would never suggest doing that, but it absolutely had to be that way for me. Um, and it's been my back against the wall ever since. It's never been a moment where you get to a point where you can rest. It's tough mentally, and this feeds back into the football thing, into the not thinking I'm good enough, but still going out and trying. And I'm competing with Tommy Pita for this position, and he's a tremendous
Uh-huh.
athlete, and we got an offense that doesn't really throw the ball very much, and I'm a passer, and it's
No.
like, so the the will, it's the camaraderie, but backing up, it absolutely had to happen that way for me, and I've had my back against the wall, and it's never
Yep.
been a moment where um, you make it at any point, at least not for myself, and there's been times where you just God, you 2, 3 auditions in a day, 4 or 5 times a week, driving 130, 140 miles in that day to get to those couple auditions, booking none of them. Just 2, 3 pages each. You have to be fully memorized. Never really had a problem with the memorization thing, but just in I mean, it's not like you're going from Apopka to Altamont Springs. You know, the distance would be the same, but it would take you an hour and a half
Just the
to get
time to get
there.
there.
And you're in
Yeah.
traffic that whole
Well,
time.
you don't know this, but I'm originally from Huntington Beach, California.
Oh, no
That's where I'm
shit.
from. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
no
where I'm
way.
from. And yeah, so I do spend some time down in Orange County. I still have family there.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I understand the traffic, and I go out of my way to fly into Orange County and not into
Smart.
LAX because LAX is
Yeah.
because the cool thing though about LAX is when you get off the plane there, you don't have to go buy any weed. You just have to inhale and you're high. Like when you leave the
I
terminal,
lived there.
it's like
That was where I lived, man. It's Playa del Rey. You fly into El Segundo, Playa del Rey. I lived right there in Playa del Rey for 20 years,
okay,
right there, right on the beach. Yeah, growing my family. And that's the other thing too. It's like when you try and have a family and a career like acting where there it's a revolving door where there's thousands of people that show up every single day to do that same thing. It's nuts to try and wrap your head around trying to get a job, let alone build a resume, um, and try and raise a family. So there's again that thing in your head where you're like, I'm not making it. I'm trying to raise a family. I'm trying to do everything by the book, and I want to tell my friends that, hey, I'm going on an audition that I'm not going to get again. I'm going on here. I'm not going to get it. It's like you don't want to lead. You were talking about the other day in your podcast. I think you were talking about the negatives. Everybody only talks about their positives, about their wins. Well, let me tell you, man. There's one win out of every 150 to 200 fucking dick kicks that you get. Doing the shit that I'm doing. It obliterates you mentally. It absolutely obliterates you mentally. You don't make much. Everything's pro bono until it's not. Um, it's brutal to try and do, and to play other people while you're doing it. You know it harkens me back to this little part in Zoolander where John Voight's talking to Ben Stiller, where he's talking about, yeah, you're talking, you're this male model, or you're this with you're wearing underwear with your wiener hanging out, for everybody to see. And it's like that's kind of like what it's like. You have to humiliate yourself and prostrate yourself in front of this camera to play other people, to do other things, and the people on the other side of the camera don't really realize that. It's kind of like you're just exposing yourself and these emotions to do this thing, and your body goes through it, everything goes through it. So when you leave this audition that you're probably not going to get, um, you feel like you just lost your dog, you just lost your husband, you just lost your wife, because your body doesn't know the difference. So you're
Do you
putting
feel that
yourself,
every time,
yeah,
Chris?
you do.
You feel that every
You
time?
better.
Yeah.
You better. Otherwise, you're not connecting to the role. You have to connect to that character.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's putting yourself through this. And it's not becoming this other thing. It's allowing yourself to be humiliated to the point where it puts you through that, because you just got humiliated in front of the class, and now, maybe you pooped your pants or something in class, or you farted in class. You have to go through that feeling. So your body doesn't know the difference, your brain doesn't know the difference. And then you'll cut whatever, or that's the end of the scene. Then you get up, you walk out to the lobby, and there's 10 other 15 other people that look just like you that are waiting to go and humiliate themselves just the same. Then you pack up, you drive across town, and then you go pretend like you're being shot out of a cannon in front of a crowd of 200 people, with a banner behind you that says "Welcome to Bed Bath and Beyond." You do that for 20 years, and raise a family and still try and have a smile on your face, and but that time that you get that one that you book, motherfucker, it makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it. I had this one job. I don't want to name names or anything. It was a huge deal. They were the biggest producer in the business. This is doing what's called reshoots. They already shot the film. They had to do some pickups and reshoots of certain scenes, and so they had to fly everybody in to do all these things, and it cost a lot of money to do this. It was a lot of money. The movie was coming out in a couple months. They had to have this stuff done, and a friend of mine was working on the film. They needed somebody who was this actor's height and could read. So my friend called me and said, "Hey, would you do stand-in and could you read lines opposite these other guys?" And I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah!" Because the other guys were like big people. So I'm like, "I'm there. I'm there. Thank you for thinking of me, first of all." And he goes, "Well, I know you can crunch dialogue, so there's some dialogue in this." I was like, "Sweet." So I get there and I get the set, and it's a tiny little tent, and there's cameras. It's hot. It's Palmdale, which is the desert, and everybody's under the gun to get this done because time constraints. A lot of money happening in a short amount of time to get it done. They hand me the script that I'm supposed to be reading, and everything is super tiny because they've shrunken the page down to 1/8 size. So it's really just as a reference, for everybody to know where we are in the scene. So they hand me the little script that I'm supposed to read. I'm off camera, but everybody else I'm feeding the lines to the actors, to the stars of the film. And I look and see what I'm supposed to say. And this is taking place in the Middle East, and I can barely read it. And everything is like they're talking about locations and they're talking about people and there's names being named, and I'm like, oh my god, what did I agree to do? And then they turn off all the lights to shoot, and there goes my pages go blank. Like I don't even know what's on the page. So like, what do you do in that moment? It's like I can't see the lines, and I'm supposed to be jostling back and forth with the camera behind the cameraman to provide eye lines for these different actors as they're doing their scenes, and I'm like, oh my god. And I start to feel that panic that set in. And I don't know, like, it was like one of those things where it kicks in. You get up under center and you look at your defense and it's all set.
Mhm.
Boom, that's a cover three. I know exactly what needs to happen. Oh, they've adjusted, they've shifted to a cover four. I know what needs to happen now. I got to switch. All those little adjustments start to happen, and it just it started coming. I started delivering the lines. Boom, 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 boom. It was just recall. It was just recall. It was recall. And I gone through everything. I'd put everything compartmentalized and put it away, and I just dealt with what I needed to deal with, and I was delivering these lines to these actors. I did it, and then when it was done, the director came up and he gave me a compliment in front of everyone. And it was one of those ones in 150. And I called my dad afterwards and I said, "Dad, you're never going to see this. No one's ever going to see this. It didn't make it. I'm not even in this film. But I just pulled some shit out of my ass." that I just, and I had to explain to him, the enormity of the amount of money that was riding on this and what had just happened. And it was like, this is why I do this. This for these moments, for that little compliment that the director gave me. He understood. Everybody else like when it was done, he said, "Cut." Everybody's outside smoking cigarettes, and I'm trying to decompress. I'm trying to like, do you understand what I had just memorized like 8 pages of, Middle Eastern dialect and delivered to some freaking heroes of mine so they can get on a plane and go to a fight in Vegas in an hour. And I'm like trying to decompress. Did I do a good job? And then I'm having like this serious imposter syndrome because it means nothing to the overall picture. It's already forgotten about.
Yeah,
They've moved
but
on, and I'm like,
but the,
was it good? Did I even do a good job? Did I have to? Does anybody want to? Like, I mean, it was just like, oh.
so Chris, what I'm getting there though from that is that it meant the world to you to keep you moving and keep you going. Your kids catch those things from you, right?
Mm,
Kids are caught, things that kids do are caught, not taught.
nice.
So when they see those things from you, but also when you have the stories of your kids, when you're talking to them, it's understanding that most of the time, the stuff you're going to go after in life, you're going to fail, but it's those times that you win.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and today, a lot of people aren't programmed that way. I mean, let's talk Major League Baseball. If you can hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame,
yeah. Right,
right? In the Hall of Fame. But everybody thinks they should be 7 out of 10, right?
right,
Because when they get on social media, everybody's winning, right?
right,
Everybody's winning.
right.
But because I was curious about that, that's what keeps you driving and moving forward, chasing that next big opportunity. But from what I see as a layperson who just likes to watch film, right? And my cousin, Katie Deshawn, she lives in Orange County, but she was an actress for a long time and still does some stuff. But, for me, I feel everybody's just one more contact away from getting a leading role in a major motion picture,
Sure.
right? If you're constantly there, right? Like you could get a call today and you could text me later and say, dude, you're not going to believe what happened, right? I'm going to go do this big match, whatever. So that's, I believe, is that the driving force that, hey man, you know what? It could happen at any time. I mean, there's all these success stories of people that didn't get their first big role until they were in their
Sure,
50s.
sure, sure. I mean, I'm not, there was a point in time where I was not holding out for that, but believing in that's, and like I said, in 2014, I had a crystal bullet moment. Um, and it was, how I can explain it is everybody around me was popping. All my friends from acting class, everybody's booking series regulars. They're booking features. I mean, it was like, there was a joke. It was like, hey man, be my friend, dude, because you'll be a success. Um, so it was just like one of those things. And I thought, like early on in my career, I thought I listened to a lot of people, and I had done some projects that, I listened to other people, and they said, it doesn't matter. Everybody does it. You got to get your name in the door. You got to get work under your belt somehow. Well, the industry changed, and I kind of got blackballed. Not blackballed, but it didn't look good when the internet came out. Everybody grew consciences, um, and so then it was hard. I had to start all over. I mean, that was like a moment where I went to Mexico and wasn't going to come back. And I did write a script kind of around that. But I hadn't planned on coming back. I took all my stuff with me, went to Mexico, um, stayed on the beach, and left left pretty much everything there. Um, you learn a lot about yourself there. It's like 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Uh-huh.
You stand on the beach naked, screaming at God for enough times, for a week, and see some UFOs and some shit. I don't know, allegedly. But I've been around avionics my entire life, and that was some shit I'd never seen before. But I just had this moment where it's like, change your name, go back, start over. I'm gonna wake you up every single night if you don't, and I'm gonna wake you up every single night in the middle of the night anyway. So you might as well get on the train and do it. Keep moving forward, always moving forward, always moving forward. So I did. I came back. I decided I came back with a surfboard. That's all I came back with, and some shorts, and started over, changed my name, um, started hitting it hard again, went a few years, but then it was still that same old pattern of whatever it was I was doing. I felt like, I equate it to looking at the stars. You look at the stars, right? And you look at those two stars, they're right next to each other. That's how I felt. I was so close. And like you were mentioning, you're that one roll away. I feel like that's right there. That's right there. You're that close. You look at those stars, they're that close. But then you think about the perspective of that. You get up right close to it, and they're never going to touch. They're millions of years, light years apart. That's where I felt I was. The reality of it was that. And I'm thinking, it's like, oh, I'm this close, I'm this close. But the reality is, I was really like that. And I read a book. I don't know if any actors follow you, but it works well in business too. Um, it's it's called Self Management for Actors. It was written by Bonnie Gillespie, and it is an absolute matrix slaying game changer for me. It taught me how to network, not necessarily network, but how to find the goal. You want to reach this goal. There's a way to get there, and there's an ethical way, and there's a right way, and there's a natural way to get there through relationships. And that's what her book taught me, was how to nurture those relationships. Not about going and getting on Gary. I'm going to follow everything Gary Vee says. I'm going to learn what attention
Sure.
arbitrage means, and I'm going to do this with my fingers, and I'm going to do I'm going to do those things because it works for Gary. But that's not, you don't have those relationships that Gary has. Gary's nurtured relationships. I say this because he's blown up to me, Gary Vee, in the past few
Yep.
years. He's absolutely
Same.
blown up to me. And that's fantastic. I don't subscribe, or I've read the books, but I'm not, I'm not a fanboy of his, outside of the fact that the man is dialed in. He's absolutely killing it. And I want to tap that same kind of motivation and energy, because he's not wrong. You should be filming, you should be doing your bit, whatever it is you want to do. Um, but that's, yeah, I kind of get lost track of where I was going. I started talking about Gary. I get passionate talking about
That,
a guy who's passionate.
that's all right. I tell you a book that
That's
also
right.
lines me with that. Something I'm reading right
Yeah.
now is The Magic of Thinking Big,
Ooh, yeah.
and that came from a recommendation from Steve Harvey, and I mean, it's an old book, but I'm reading it right now. I mean, I read every day. Like I in high
That's
school,
fantastic.
all I read was Cliff Notes, and I wasn't even good at that. But later in life, I realized there's a lot of good stuff there. But when I read The Magic of Thinking Big, has been really
That's great.
a really powerful book.
That's great. Yeah,
Yep.
this one, I
It,
mean, it set things into motion that was like, okay, wait a second, I'm doing this entirely wrong. I'm trying to throw out 100 seeds to the wind, because I am this here. You guys, you're this pool of people looking for this here. I am this, and I throw out my seeds to the wind. That's terrible. And that's what this book showed me. It's terrible. You have to focus. Look at the conversations these people are having. Look at the relationships they're in. Are those relationships leading to the end result that, sorry, cutting off myself from camera, leading to the end result of what you want? If they're not, then those are not avenues to throw your seeds to. So that was a huge eye opener to me, and relationships and focus. And that brought all the
yep.
thing that took all that waiting for that one relationship, one role thing to happen, and put it all aside and said, I'm not waiting for that anymore. I'm doing it myself. So I took, I was writing and I was compiling scripts for people over the past 15, 20 years. I was always writing scripts for people to direct and hopefully to pull me into acting too. Um, so I've had those, but I really took, the pandemic, right before the pandemic hit. It was 2014 to 2019. I was kind of building up what I needed to do. I was setting my foundation for kind of where I am now and where I'll be tomorrow. So, based on the book that I read from Bonnie and the relationship building, and it was self building more than it was relationship building. I had to build myself. So I know what relationships I'm going to enter into. Plus, when you're entering into a relationship, you don't want to be coming with all with the negative and with the baggage of why you need that person's help. You're coming with something to offer, and
Coming
so
with value. Yep. Bring
I had
value.
to bring up my value, and then I had to have something of value. I didn't have a reel to show. I
Yep.
didn't have new headshots to show. I didn't have anything to bring to the party. So from 14 to 19, I was trying to build up something to show, and it wasn't happening. And I said, Jesus, if the world could just shut down for 5 fucking seconds so I could gather my thoughts and take a deep breath, because I got 20 years pent up that I just need to just focus on. And I just want to let out. And then the world stopped. It did. And bluff was called, and not a moment was fucking wasted. I started writing feverishly for what I'm working on now, the project I just finished, the project we finished before that. We took 30 plus awards for The Huntsman and the Hound, which we did in 2019, 2020. And then 2021, we focused on Harbinger of Death, which was the short that we just finished. And we had like 20 plus awards for that too. As a team, we just worked well together, and we did kind of all at the same time. Myself and some like-minded friends that I've had over these years all did that same thing. We all just into ourselves, built ourselves up, figured out how we're going to make it work for ourselves. And it was us. We were a SAG production. It was us and one other production in Hollywood that was working at all during the pandemic. At this one specific time when everything was completely shut down, we were the only production still going. In LA, there was one other in Atlanta that was going, but we decided that we were just not going to worry about anything studio related, anything network related, anything. We're just going to focus on our stuff and pump it out. And if somebody books a job, great. You bring that back to the community, and then we put that money into the projects. That's kind of so that's like where we're at now, but it's more self-reliant. No more of kind of doing things the traditional way. Yeah, I'm past that. I'm past that. It's all about doing it from myself, for myself, and for. I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that
Right.
in an absolute selfish way.
So here's the thing too. I think that everybody loves a comeback story, regardless of what was knocked down
For
there.
sure.
I mean, this is a horrible analogy, but if Michael Vick could come back,
For
anybody can
sure.
come back.
For sure.
I mean, you just can,
You
right?
can't hurt
And
animals, man.
yeah, so I mean, but you come back. I mean, he would come back. He's on television. He got to play more, whatever.
For
So
sure.
I think a lot of times we don't come back from situations like that because we don't believe that it's possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like we don't believe that, well, shoot, I messed up really bad. I'm
Yeah.
done. And I think that kudos to you for believing in yourself to come back. You pivoted a little bit and now you're going after
You
it
have to.
again. I'm just curious, what's the support like as you do this? I mean, it's got to be tough to be married to an actor. So like from your wife, she must be a saint. Like, I mean, tell me a little bit about that, Chris.
Well, I would hate to speak for my wife. She, I'm a, we weren't going to unpack these things. No, I'm a bit much. My wife is absolutely the best. She's very supportive. Um, and she doesn't,
I have one of those too.
God, you have to, when you're taking the life of yourself on, you really have to have somebody who's supportive and understanding that there's no template for how to do it when it's of yourself. There's people that you can emulate, there's canaries in the coal mine, but you really have to. It doesn't get done unless you do it. You don't work out unless you work out. You don't
Uh,
learn the lines unless you study the lines. You don't feel that emotion unless you've put your body in that state where you feel that emotion. You have to go through those things to experience it. But I don't like my wife. She understands that and gives me that space and calls me out on the bullshit too. If she sees something that she's like, that looks like bad acting, or whatever it is, and sometimes I have to compartmentalize her. I have to give her a fake name, so I can understand that I'm getting notes from Carol or I'm getting notes from my wife Jennifer. If I'm getting notes from my wife Jennifer, I will, I will address them in a different way than I will if I'm getting it from Carol. And I have to separate, and she understands that. It's kind of weird, but I want to honor that, because I honor what she has to say, and I don't want to diminish it just because it's coming from my wife. That should never be, it should be the most powerful thing because it's coming from your wife. But um, and that's for other people too that don't know that dynamic. If she's on set, they don't know. I mean, everybody knows that she's my wife, but I'm just saying it
Sure.
creates that it's not the producer's wife, it's not the actor's wife. It's the notes coming from this person are legit, just as legit as they are from this person. But my wife, handles the kids. I say handles the kids. She's been homeschooling the kids for their duration. My son's 16, about to be 16, and my daughter just turned 13. And they're freaking rad, man. My son's a YouTuber. He's got a channel called TrisTube HD on YouTube. He does video gaming. My daughter's a dancer, and she's 13. She's been dancing for 10 and a half years, 11 and a half years. And she's an assistant instructor at Bobby's School of Performing Arts in Newbury Park. And she's a competitive dancer, and she slays. And my wife keeps it all together. She's got a neurotic, probably multipolar actor husband, and two kids that are nonstop in two different directions at the same time. Thankfully, Tristan does a lot of work from home, so he's kind of grounded. But Cassidy, they're all over the place. They were in, they were in Anaheim last week. They're up Northern California this coming weekend, and then they have Vegas in a couple weeks. Competitive dance is like a travel ball. It's like travel baseball or travel
Yeah,
anything else.
my youngest daughter did competitive dance and
Oh,
competitive
okay,
cheer from the
sure.
age of 3
You
until
know,
she graduated high school. So we were all over the country with that.
yep.
But I tell you what, she graduated from Florida State.
Oh, I'm
I hate
sorry
to
to
say
hear that,
that. You
man.
should
I
have gave her a
know,
helmet
I
in the back.
know.
But she graduated from FSU with a 3.9 GPA with a degree in finance
Wow,
because and a 4.0 from high school. You know what I mean?
wow.
So those the learning the disciplines of being active in athletics created that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what's created that there. And my oldest daughter was not a fan of school. She just wasn't her thing, but she saved money when she got out of school. She became she was cutting hair,
Hmm.
and she saved money, and she bought her first food truck. So she has a food truck now, and she has a catering service, and
It's
she is just
rad.
killing it,
That's
man.
awesome.
So sometimes college isn't the path, but for her, she is just absolutely, she's done it up.
Oh,
I
that's
mean, I'm
great.
proud of both my girls. They're just, and the best compliment is when they tell me, "Hey, Dad, we got our work ethic from you." They were both here for Christmas. They're like, "We got it from you.
That's
We
awesome.
saw you always grinding and working and trying to go other places in life,
Yep.
and that's how we got it."
Yep.
So it's and your kids get it from you too,
Oh,
Chris.
thank you.
That's what I mean, without a
They get
doubt.
a
And then
they
it's cool that they see the stabilization factor of your wife as
Yeah,
part of that.
yeah.
And my wife, I've been with my wife for it'll be 11 years in August,
Wow, that's great,
and
man.
she is without a doubt my number one fan, allowing me to take on other things. I travel all over the country right now. We're doing speaking and just different stuff, and she totally gets it. I invest in myself all the time. I'm like, hey, I've got this opportunity to get really in deep with this guy who's really going to help me grow my speaking, my coaching,
Hmm.
and all these other stuff. It's going to be a massive connect, but it's X amount of dollars. What do you think? She goes, do you know how much I spent to, do you know how much I spent to go to college? She's in dermatology. So she goes, you know how much I
Oh,
spent to
geez,
go to
yeah.
school? I'm like, yeah. She goes, this is you going to school.
Right,
Like I'm 100% in.
right.
So it's just massive that we have
The
that
support,
support system in
it's
life
necessary,
to get
man.
where we want to go,
It's
man. But
necessary.
I want to, we're going to wrap it up here just real quick
Sure.
because we got to do another episode because I don't think we got even
Oh,
close to
man.
getting it done, but I think this is going to be really good. But dude, from somebody on the outside who you've told some of the story to and knows it, dude, you literally could take your life story and sell it to Amazon or somebody else. My friend Damon West, I don't know if you know who Damon, he was on my podcast. He's the guy who wrote the Coffee Bean book. His life story is getting ready to come
I
out.
like that coffee bean. That's a great little story. That's
Yeah, so he was on my show. If you haven't listened to that episode yet,
I
check it
did.
out.
I did. Yes.
How I met Damon, Chris, was I saw he's a big fan of Jordan tennis shoes like me. So I do this thing called One Jordan. And I take one Jordan tennis shoe. I found out your size and I send a handwritten note.
Right.
So I sent it to Damon West. He called me. He's like, hey man, that's the coolest gift I've ever been given. The cool thing was 2 weeks later, we spoke on the same stage in Charleston, South Carolina.
Cool.
So we got to actually interact. And then my flight was delayed. His flight was delayed. So I was actually sitting there and he was on the phone with the producers and the writers from Friday Night Lights, because they're the ones who wanted to do his life story.
Sure.
So,
wow.
dude, you have just as powerful a story. You just got to believe in that, man. You got to believe in that.
Thank you.
I mean, maybe that's the one thing, Chris, that takes that to that next level, because your story's super powerful, man.
Thank you.
You came from a good school, and growing up, Bishop Moore's a great school, this great environment, and you could have been soft and ended up like a bunch of people we know that got nowhere. Got nowhere, right? But you didn't do that. You went to Valdosta State, and then you transferred schools, and you came back and said, this isn't for me. And $200 and some later in a gas card, you figured out a way to get to California, man. So
yeah.
I'm super proud to be a friend of yours.
Wow.
And honored to have you on here. And I can't wait to see where our relationship, this rekindling it, where it goes from here.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Very powerful, man. That again, just boosts the imposter syndrome. That's I appreciate it. I'm gonna have to go back and analyze this. This was, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. I've spoken words I haven't spoken before. And there's
of course, man.
You don't. It's weird because you feel like, my wings of wax. I still have a little bit left, man.
You got a lot left.
I'm out here. I'm out here slinging at dreams. You know what I mean? But
there's a lot left.
I appreciate it.
We will definitely you'll be the first person who's been on my show twice, because we're gonna have to come back and revisit this. Thank you so much for tuning in to the One Hand at a Time podcast today. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. I'm often asked if I'm available for speaking opportunities or accepting new coaching clients. The answer is yes. Feel free to click the Calendly link in the show notes to set up a 30-minute call with myself. And remember, as we move forward in life, we do it one hand at a time.